Good afternoon, KBEC listeners. Welcome to Life and Money Matters. I've got Mike Hill and the illustrious Renee Guerra in studio today. We are here to take your questions as it relates to improving your life, trying to make it a little bit better. We are encouraging you to give us a call here at 972-923-1390 or 972-937-1390. I understand with last week's show, Mike, you had a couple of callers and talking about Mother's Day and how money related into Mother's Day, correct?
That was a lot of fun. It was an estrogen-filled show. We had Valerie and Lisa Ware, yoga for love instructor over there in Ovilla. It was a really good show. We did a quiz at the end, and I am happy to say that your employee Valerie completely flunked that quiz.
Way to go, Valerie.
A little bit there.
Well, you know, that's one of those things, too, that if they're trick questions, that might be a little bit much for her to handle sometimes. You know, you give her the tough tales. And Renee, welcome back in. We missed you for a couple of weeks here, buddy.
Hey, I know.
Glad to have you back.
I appreciate that. You know, I was in Arizona last Saturday, actually last week. I actually hired myself a coach, and I was down there working with him, along with some other coaches from around the world, and I listened to your show last Saturday.
Oh,
you guys
wow.
did a great job.
Fantastic.
Yeah, no pressure.
I thought it was outstanding.
I will admit that I did not listen because I was in the middle of going through a college young man's graduation. My son graduated from college last week, and knock on wood, he'll hopefully find a job, and we'll
off the payroll yet? Or?
Nah, not officially. We're still working on that. We're in our third round of interviews to try and see if we can't find him a good job and make all those things go away. So, hey, I want to talk about excuses, because when Renee sent me this thing today or earlier this week, I thought excuses was one of those things that everybody in life goes through. Everybody creates them, and what a great way, you know, quite frankly. Young people in college, you know, they kind of make excuses about, oh, what am I going to do when I get out, and oh, I can't find a job in these economic times, and you know, I can't afford to work, whatever. The excuses come a dime a dozen and a nickel a bushel or whatever. Renee, tell me about the book you're reading and talk to me about excuses a little bit.
Quite frankly, it's a book by Dr. Wayne Dyer, and he has a book titled Excuses Be Gone, and I read that on the way to Arizona, and I thought, you know, what a great point to make to the listeners about all the excuses that we can come up with. And just to give you an example, as people may tell you, this is the way it's been, or I can't help the way I think. That's the way I've always known it to be, or you know, I can't do this, or I don't have time, or I wait till the last minute. And just to read this book gave me a whole different idea of just how I've been programmed from my early life, and just from people I hang around with as well. And it's amazing how when you think of excuses, if I say I'm too tired, I think about like Mother's Day weekend. You know, all the mothers out there, when they're sick and they have children to feed, and they tell their children to go feed yourself and they're too young to cook, they have to get up and make that food, right? Absolutely. So even though if they say I'm too tired, they have the will.
Or hopefully
the
father's cooking for them since it is Mother's Day.
Exactly. You know? Hopefully the dad's stepping up and doing something.
That's true too. You know, the guys have to step in, but it's such a profound book, so I would recommend it to all the listeners out there.
And what's the title of the book again?
It's called Excuses Be Gone, and that's by Dr. Wayne Dyer, D-Y-E-R. And he just goes through the different excuses that we all make in our lives, and then how we get programmed from an early age. Basically, when we're children, you know, our parents tell us we can't afford this, money doesn't grow on trees. I don't have time for that.
All right, listeners, call us at 972-923-1390. We want to hear your number one excuse. I want to hear what excuse you've heard over and over in your life and your family. Or 972-938-1390.
I wanted to ask you that. You said programmed. I think that's very, very a little subtle thing that you threw in there, but you said it a couple of times. I'd like to ask you, what exactly do you mean by programmed? To understand, okay, eat all your vegetables. I mean, I'm just trying to, as a parent of two daughters, help me to not program my kids, I guess, is what I would ask you as the life coach.
Well, basically, one of the authors, one of the things that Wayne mentioned in the book is a guy named Richard Dawkins. He's an Oxford biologist, and he created the word, or coined the word meme. So it's like mimic. So your children will mimic the things that you say. So when you think of the word meme, it means,
Lord help me,
observe and copy. Well, you observe and copy behavior, and children do that. I mean, when you're a child, think about how much they watch TV, and they mimic the adults on TV, or they mimic you or mom and dad as you have a conversation. So you know, they pick that up. So the key point is that it's transferring ideas, data, our attitudes and beliefs to others, but it's done mentally. And you may not even be aware of it. Our parents, they just, because it's all a part of who we are. We start growing up, we mimic our parents. Money doesn't grow on trees. My parents told me money doesn't grow on trees. You need to learn that, right? So that's where all of that transition of information starts.
Okay, so we get the message of, okay, here's the excuse. What do you do to overcome the excuse? I mean, that's the real challenge in life. You know, anybody can come up with, well, I don't have the money, or I can't do this, or, you know, I'm too short, or I'm too fat, or I'm too skinny.
Well, let me give you one of the examples, and one I have written down is it will be difficult. So a lot of people will say, I'm not going to work on this project, it's going to be difficult, or I can't quit smoking because it's difficult. And for me personally, I used to chew tobacco many years ago, and I thought, well, I can't quit because it'll be difficult. So, you know, the thought process is I just have to quit. You know, I'm telling myself, that's a belief that it's going to be difficult. Does that make sense? Because in other words, if I tell myself it's going to be difficult, it's a belief. People can change their habits. It all boils down to awareness, is what it ends up being.
Well,
go ahead.
In that awareness level begins, you're saying, really at infancy, all right, as you're growing up. You hear these things, and so they become instilled in your life, in your mindset, that you can't do these things.
Right. So what they do, Jim, is they become a habit. So in other words, if you start saying it's too difficult, your parents say you can't play basketball because you're too young. Because you're too young right now. Mm-hmm. Well, who says you can't start playing basketball at 2 or 3 years old? You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that belief, they can start picking up these patterns at a young age. I mean, it's just incredible.
They're being told over and over without us even knowing it that you can't cross this barrier.
Exactly. There's a barrier, and you're starting putting perimeters around it. Mm-hmm. So it becomes a belief. So when I mentioned about it's too difficult, the belief that habits are hard to change is only a belief. So in other words, another good example is like being on a bike and climbing a hill. You may have people look at a climb, and I know we were talking about cycling, Jim, a while back, where you guys were talking about a pretty good sized hill, and you're like, man, that's a good hill that's tough to get up. Well, that's a belief. Until you get on your bike and get out there and do it, and once you get on the other side, you say, you know, I can conquer that climb on a bicycle, or I can see the other side of it. You have to be able to understand the excuse of saying, I can't climb that hill. Does that make sense?
No,
sure.
I mean, you know, and it's funny that you say parents. We kind of talked about this off air. You had mentioned, and the book sounds very, very interesting, just from the couple of things that Renee's mentioned to me. You mentioned to me about the woman that had talked to the author about, you know, I'm too old to go back to school.
Right.
Because I hear this a lot. I have people, it's empty nest syndrome, the husband's still working, the wife's not working anymore. What should I do with my time? Well, I said, have you ever thought about going back to school? Well, I'm not trying to get a job. There's no better gift you can give yourself, in my opinion, than education.
Oh, bar none.
Always grow, always grow, always grow. Because the minute we think we know everything, there's somebody out there that'll prove us wrong. In my case, it's my wife every time. So. But you mentioned that, and there's a personal story. I guess this is where a parent did a positive thing. My mother, at age 52, went back. She was teaching English for 15 years, went back and got her master's degree because I told her, you're never going to be the head of the English department unless you have a master's degree. Well, at 52, she could have said, you know what, I'm coasting. I got 8 years left till pension. But she went back to school, and that was a huge... I was already graduated from college when she did this.
Sure.
But that was a huge kind of moment for her and for me to see that, hey, there is no excuse not to go back. And I use that with clients to say, well, I'm too old to go back to school. Well, let me get my mother on the line and push a speaker, and you can tell her you're too old to go back to school.
I think it's a great example. And one thing that my mother did, when she grew up in Laredo, Mexico, so all she knew was Spanish. She didn't speak any English when she moved over here with my father. And she was a stay-at-home mom until the age of 43. And that's when she went to cosmetology school. And that's when she first learned how to drive. And she learned how to drive a Volkswagen.
In Laredo or in Nuevo Laredo?
In Texas.
Okay.
We were here, they live in Dallas, East Dallas, and they still live there. But she, at age 43, she started venturing out and started working. She had never done that before. So she was a little scared because when she went to cosmetology school, she couldn't understand some of the English.
Yeah.
And my dad just pointed at her. She came home. Actually, my mom came back from class, said, I'm not going back anymore. My dad says, no, you're going to go back because I paid for it. So he made her go back, and she finished her cosmetology school, and she ended up driving that Volkswagen. And, you know, stick shift's pretty tough to learn. And so at the age of 43, somebody could say that's a little old to be starting your career or starting to drive. She had never driven before. So her thought, she was not too old. But some people think that. Just
some
like
people were telling her that. Or society said you're too old to go back and learn that.
Exactly. So, I'm very proud of her for doing that. And we joked around. Matter of fact, a few weeks ago, I did a speech on it and credited her for just being able to believe in herself. Because you have to have the belief that you can do that. So, in other words, if you tell yourself I'm too old, you have to change that mindset. So, like your mother and then my mom, that's a perfect example of having that belief, saying, yes, I can overcome other people saying you're too old or you may be too old to do this.
What do our listeners do that are out there, they're sitting in their car right now and they're saying, you know what, I get it, I understand, we all make excuses, we've all kind of got those things in the back of our head. What 3 steps can we give them, or what tangible things can we have them do that can get this out of their lives?
Change that mindset. Yeah.
Change that mindset.
Number one is I've mentioned this on the show, and what it really boils down to, guys, we talked about this at the very beginning, is taking 100% responsibility where you're at. In other words, when you look at an excuse, look at how that's maybe limiting you in living the life you want to live. In other words, if I'm too old, that's limiting yourself of being able to create what you want to create in your life.
And you've actually got a paper on that, right, Renee?
I do.
A thought process on that?
I do.
So for our listeners out there that really want more information on that, send us an email at info@kbec.com, and we'd be more than happy to forward that to you so you can see firsthand how to overcome these kind of things. I think that's important.
And for each excuse, it's a little bit different. So to give the top 3 would be, in other words, like if I'm too old or I'm not smart enough and I can't afford it, there's all different types of different processes of getting through those. But basically, it's awareness is key, and then understanding where that is coming from, where that's resonating within, and then also being able to overcome that barrier. So, in other words, giving yourself an idea, saying, I can change my habits, or I can change belief about not having enough money.
Sure. Mike, as a financial planner, what do you see in your life that, or what kind of excuses, I guess, do people bring into your office when you walk in and talk to them for the first time?
Obvious ones, of course, are do I even have enough money to make a difference? Do I have enough money to invest with? Or I want to retire here, but, I just don't have the time to put into this. Really? You don't have the time to put into your financial stability and security when you're retired? Are you kidding me? You're going to be 85 and be a Walmart greeter? You better put time into this. Nothing that's there anything wrong with that, but do it because you like doing it, not because you have to do it. And the thing that I try to overcome with people, and no pun intended, with Renee talking about chewing tobacco, we're not going to go and chew off this huge $600,000, $700,000 need or whatever it may be in your IRA or your retirement accounts to pay you an income.
$600,000, $700,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the dollar number can become daunting.
We could do a little bit of a time. I've told this story on the air before, and I use this in my practice. When I graduated high school, talking about graduates, when I graduated high school, my father took me aside. I had a job at the time, and he said, listen, you're going to take $50 a month, and you're going to put it in this account. And, if you just do what the market's performed, and I'm not a big market proponent, but if you just put it away and don't look at it, have it automatically taken out of your checking account, and you put it aside, by the time you're 65 years old, you're going to be a millionaire. Whatever, Dad, get out of here. He went so far, the geek dad that I have, and it's rubbed off on me, printed off a spreadsheet showing what an 8% return would do, putting $50 in a month over that 40-year term. So that's you
double your money every 8 years. Yeah, people don't realize that 8% with an 8-year return.
If it goes to 10, then it goes to 20, then it goes to 40.
Exactly.
It's the power of compounding interest, and a lot of people don't get that. So you think 50, that's not going to make a difference. Well, the story goes, now I'm still doing it, but in a different way. I graduated college. Now that was hard. There was times I could have went to this real fun party down the road with my $50 that is getting taken out every time. I could go whatever it may be, but I kept doing it, and I graduated college, 22, 23 years old, got my MBA, and then a year later I had $7,000 to $8,000 in that account, and that's what I used as my down payment on my first house at 24 years old. And that was a lesson that I was taught. Now, that's what I would hope for the listeners and in my practice. Listen, it's never too late to start, and it's never too small to start.
Sure.
Let's chomp it at a little bit at a time. So,
well, I want to give our listeners, too, a little bit of feedback here and let them know exactly what we're going to talk about the rest of the show. One of them is excuses, and we've kind of touched on that. But the other thing we wanted to talk about was this whole concept of a college degree and what a college degree really is worth in today's environment and business when you talk about potential to make money and how to pay for it. And I'm going to tell a personal story right up front here, guys. With both of my kids graduating, I gave both of my children the same gift when they started college and when they ended college. When the kids started college, we formed an IRA.
No.
Both of them got a $2,000 IRA when they were 17 years old. And I said, they wanted to go, why are we doing this? I said, well, it's the earliest you can establish one at age 18.
Let me back up a little bit. Did you put them on the payroll and then pay them $2,000 and put it in IRA?
I did not, because
you would have got to write it off.
I know. I would have gotten to write it off. But and the reality was at that time I was employed by another company, so I couldn't do that. Now that I've learned I took that approach. But then I did exactly what you described, Mike. I laid out, hey guys, this is yours now. This is the start of your nest egg. But if you're smart about this and you put $50 away, here's what you're going to have. If you put $25 away, here's what you're going to have. But before they ever left for college, the number one thing I sat down with them is, I had the discussion, you're now on your own, but understand one thing, the consequences of your actions, you've got to take total responsibility at a whole different level now, okay?
Absolutely.
Mom and Dad are not going to be there to bail you out, to make sure that you're doing your laundry, that you're doing these things.
Or, quite frankly, bail you out.
Or bail you out. But it becomes the time management skill. It becomes that overall deal. But the final thing I told them was that if you graduate in 4 years, okay, this is what I'll give you. Okay, I'll give you the $10,000 or I'll give you the $20,000. I'll give you what is ever left in the money that your mother and I have set aside for your college education. Okay, that was the money side of it. That's only one small part. The bigger part of it is when you graduate and you go out and you find your life passion and your life skill, what you're going to be able to do with that financially as well as emotionally will pay dividends in a way that you've never seen before.
Oh, no doubt.
And that's the whole key. Yeah. It's not just about getting that piece of paper, but it's understanding that with that piece of paper, what doors open for you and where you go. But to that end, listeners, if you're out there and you're getting ready for college or you've got questions about how to finance college or how to motivate your kids, we want to hear from you. Give us a call at 972-923-1390 or 972-938-1390. We want to answer your questions about how to prepare your child for college, how to get them motivated maybe in the right step when it comes to life skills and life coaching and things of that nature, and then also on the money side of it. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there right now that are sitting there going, oh, I don't have enough saved, or how much do I save, or where do I go? We want to be able to help you answer those questions today and would really like to focus the next segment of the show on that. So give us a call, 972-923-1390 or 972-938-1390. Mike?
Yeah, definitely listen.
College.
You're going to want to listen You're going to want to listen in here and after the break, because I'm going to give you some real good tips on things that are available to you now that are even tax-free to start saving for college, and even if your son or daughter is 17 years old. So you're definitely going to want to come back after the break.
Good deal. Give us a call back here. We'll be back in about 1 minute. KKBC listeners, sorry about that. We are back on the air with Mike and Renee here talking about the beauty of life and money matters as it relates to college education and what we need to do to save money. Talk to us about that, Michael.
And when we ended, I didn't want to throw us for a loop here. When we ended, we were talking about putting $50 a month away, and that's was the example that my father gave me, and you gave the example of giving your children $2,000 when they graduated high school to get them started. But Renee, he was just about to give us an example of how he started something really small, or tell us about what you were saying.
I think basically when you're talking about giving somebody putting $50 away is that mindset of I can't afford it. It's like, I can't afford to put $50 away. And really, the whole process of that is just shifting your thoughts of lack to being able to tap it into the world of abundance, so they can see what they're going to get at the end of that process of putting $50 a month away. That, once you keep doing that, it won't be in that mindset anymore. It'll become second nature. So in other words,
make it automatic. Have it taken out of your check, just like a 401k or anything else. If you don't have to write the check, you'll do it.
Exactly. And so once that happens, I really like this quote from Henry Ford. He says, whether you can believe you can afford to do a thing or not, you're right.
Absolutely.
So if you tell yourself, I can't afford to put $50 away for a college fund or put money away into an IRA, as you were talking about, then that's what's going to happen. So, you got to shift your mind from all these excuses of I can't afford it. And just a real quick example is a friend of mine, she was taking a class and she started sharing some information about taking this course, and a benefactor stepped in and actually funded the whole project. So, again, not by telling yourself I can't afford it, but if you go out and tell people your mission or your goals and tell them what you're trying to accomplish, in other words, like taking a course, somebody may help you in that. So I'm not saying somebody's going to just start giving you $50, but in other words, you got to change that mindset of I can't afford it. So again, going back to your college example, I think that's a perfect way of doing that.
And that's something that I want to kind of get out there, Jim, is that, I have family members that didn't finish college. I'm not even going to sit here and say that college is for everybody. I just think expanding your horizons, continue that quest for knowledge, be it I'm a welder and now I want to become a master welder, be it a baker and now you want to become a master chef, something. And that's what I'm talking about here. So when I talk about planning for college, I maybe should say planning for education, because there's funds that you could go into.
Or secondary education.
Secondary or PhD, sure. Whatever it may be.
Maybe vocational, maybe technical, who knows, in today's world.
And that comes back to the question you had at the beginning, Jim. Does having a college degree or having that kind of education really make a difference? And I've heard these. I mean, look what just happened on Friday. A little bitty old company, maybe you've heard of it, called Facebook.
To the tune of Mark Zuckerberg walked away with $20.7 billion.
29 years old. And I can get all that. I'm not going to give you my opinion on that. Definitely call in the show. I'll be more than happy to email you, but I can't give a broad-based opinion for SEC standards on my opinion on that.
On purchasing Facebook stock.
On that particular stock. Yeah, but anyway, but Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, those guys, there's 9 U.S. presidents.
Never
finished college. But they did start. Bill Gates and Mark did go to Harvard and meet the people. If you've seen the movie Social Network, they gave them the idea for Facebook, so that's a whole other story.
And of those 9 presidents, 6 of them were some of the founding fathers.
Absolutely.
So college was not necessarily even in their vocabulary in 1700.
And here's the one thing I want to get across, just in case you had some doubts. The U.S. Census Bureau, the one that just came out in 2010, released that workers 18 and over sporting a bachelor's degree earn an average of $51,000 a year. The average high school diploma, 18 and over, is $28,000 a year. Workers with advanced degree average $74,000 a year. What that basically comes out to is your average college degree or further educated beyond high school diploma person earns $1 million a year. This is according to U.S. Census, not mine kill. U.S. Census Bureau, $1 million more over their lifetime than somebody that didn't get that second education.
In other words, education pays.
Mm-hmm. And so now that you've heard that and you're driving, you go, wow. And this falls into the excuses with Renee. That's why I love this segment of this show, how we're kind of tying them in. Well, I didn't have anybody pay for my stuff. I remember my father saying this. Nobody paid for my school and blah, blah, blah. And I get it. He went on a GI Bill, went to Vietnam, came back, and that's how he got his degree.
But he found a way to do it.
He did find a way to do it.
That's the thing about it is that some people will just not continue their education. They'll stop there. And he found a way to do it just by going through a GI Bill where he could have just sat back, well, I can't afford it, and never go back to school.
He overcame the excuse.
He overcame the excuse, found a way to go through it, and made it happen. So, again, that's the point of the show, about just making sure that you keep moving forward and getting that continued education.
And that's something that I would love to ask from the callers or the listeners, if they want to call in. Give us examples, because this is the community show. Give us an example of a good way that you save for college. Give us an example of something that you wish you could do all over again, or that you wouldn't do all over again as far as saving account for college.
And I think there's a lot of options out there that people just simply don't understand. Our 529B plan's the best way to save for college. Is it best to just put the money into a traditional savings account? Is it best to put the money into your name or your kid's name? So those are all questions that are out there. We want to hear from you at 972-923-1390 or 972-937-1390 or 972-938-1390 on the Metro line. If you've got a question about how to save for college and what the benefits are going to be, because we're here to answer your questions, make it beneficial to you, and hopefully you'll find it enlightening as you go forward trying to plan for this thing, because it's in most people's budgeting. I got to believe college education's number 3 behind buying a car and buying a house.
If that, and I'm going to give some tidbits here in a second on how to not only save, but to actually how to get others involved. What we've done in my own family, because this is what I really want to stress upon parents out there, and it's scary. When I went to school just 20 years ago, I remember, because I paid for half of it. I worked summers and I got a loan, and also had a scholarship or athletic scholarship for half of it. But what I was able to do, it was about $5,000 a semester all in. Right now, your average 4-year state college, room and board plus tuition, is right around $65,000 for 4 years. That's right now as of 2012, and that's on the low side. I took a state school like my alma mater, A&M, because hopefully my girls go there one day if they choose. But that's what it costs now. What do you think that's going to cost in 10 years? And that falls into the excuses that Renee got into. Well, that's too much. That's such an overwhelming number. But right now, college tuition costs are doing better than any stock market return, are doing better than the inflation on tuition. Why? Because now people are putting more and more of an emphasis on college degrees than they did 20 years ago. So it's starting to become in this country kind of like China and even in England, where college degrees are, well, yeah, you're supposed to go. It's not a want to go, that's what you do after high school. So it's raising up the cost, because A&M, for example, had 38,000 applicants last year for the freshman year, only accepted 8. And 6,000 of those were in the top 10% of the class, so they were automatically admitted. But that's a state school.
USC had 42,000 and they accepted 2,600. You know, to that mean though, one of the things that you're hearing your legislators talk about and other people talk about is the fact that the traditional 4-year college. I'll give you a prime example. If you live here in Waxahachie, Texas, here's something you have to take advantage of from an economic standpoint. Global High and Waxahachie High School both offer you the opportunity to have your graduate have an associate's degree before they ever leave high school. And the cost to you is $0.
That's fantastic.
Hear me again. It is $0.
I just read the story.
Because you tie to Navarro Junior College, you're taking dual credit classes, and your high school credit goes as well as your college credit. What a great way to save on that $65,000 that Mike just told you about. We just cut it in half because you're going to graduate from Waxahachie High School with a Bachelor of Arts degree, and you're not going to have to pay for those first 2 years of quote-unquote liberal arts education.
Absolutely.
Huge benefit. Huge benefit out there. And yet too many people don't take advantage of those kind of things. Because, one, the excuse. They don't know. They don't understand. And that's what we're here today to help you answer. If you don't know something out there and you don't ask the question, how in the world can you hope for somebody to give you an answer? So give us your questions at 972-923-1390 or 972-937-1390. Renee, you had something to add on excuses?
I was going to throw Mike a curveball here, because one of the things he said was it's becoming more prevalent, or it's becoming common, more people going to college. Is that what you said? Like that's what the kids should do?
That's the stereotype right now. It's not quite there, and that's actually going into the quiz that I may be giving you later. That's a percentage that's out there, but go ahead.
Well, interesting enough, because that's where the parents push children. I've had some conversations with kids and they've gone to school, and they're like, I really don't want to go to college, but my parents are wanting me to go because that's the only way they say I can be successful.
Absolutely.
And so, I just kind
Mark Zuckerberg would disagree with them.
Yeah, totally. And that's why I was kind of throwing that out there just for listeners, is that, I know we're talking about college, but one of the things that I want to just reiterate and just let people know is that one of the mindsets of our excuses is I'm not smart enough, or I've never been smart enough. And what really happens in a situation like that is that we buy into the definition of intelligence. It's measured by what family members or educators provide us earlier in our life. So basically, how to get around that belief of I'm not smart enough, or let's say you're not doing continuing education, is basically if you put your passion and perseverance in your ideas, you'll meet the genius part of you. And, sometimes...
I like that. Wait a second. Say that again.
If you
meet the genius
part of you. And sometimes that stuff is just not taught in school. The passion that comes within a person's self, they put their passion into that, and what they want to do, what they want to create in their life, that's going to resonate.
Well, and people hear it, and I say that in radio like it's some kind of pun, but, people feel and hear your emotions. They understand very quickly whether you're engaged in something or whether you're not engaged in something. They understand it by your actions and by your physical being as you're going forward.
Yeah. And I love that because that ties into right now. I've read a book about China, the next dynasty, if you will. Some real good points in that book, but right now they're having a huge problem in China because they are so pushed is the right word, on engineering.
I've heard that on engineering and math, and then they're losing the broad-scale creativity.
That's why there's so much copyright infringement over there, for lack of a better word, because we have the creativity of a Yahoo, and they create their own Quaizu. They just change the name, and it's basically the same thing. But I did want to get this point out before the break, because we promised it last time. I have 3 really good tips on how you can start saving for college now, listeners. How you can start getting it going. The first one, a lot of people don't talk about, because quite frankly, financial planners, accountants, they don't get paid to advertise this. But the one that I'm a big believer in, and I'm doing it also with my children along with the 529 plan, is the Texas Tuition Promise Fund. Not the Guarantee Fund that was out about 8 or 9 years ago, which would have been great if you got into that. There's a reason they closed it down.
Thank you, I got into it.
Yeah, I know. Enrollment on this starts every September 1st. Write this down if you're at home. For your grandkids, for your nieces, for your nephews, I can't stress it enough. It's called the Texas Tuition Promise Fund, and what you do is you're buying hours or you're buying credits to go towards any school, not just a Texas school, but more. It could be a private school in Texas. If you go out, they'll give you a check at that time those prices, but you're basically buying tuition hours today, and you don't have
at today's cost.
At today's cost, and you don't have to write in a $10,000 check. You could do it at $50. They let you buy them in increments over 15 years. They have it all spread out. Every single year it goes up. So the earlier, if you miss the September 1st enrollment, it stops in February. If you miss that, you have to wait till the next September. Why? Because you get 2012 tuition prices, not 2011. It's tax-free when you take the money out. You could change the beneficiary at any time, but not a lot of people, even you don't see any ads on TV about it anymore, but it's called the Texas Tuition Promise Fund. Just put that in Google and you can see everything you want to see on that. The next one, and Jim mentioned, and I had this for my own children, and there's a big reason for this, are 529 plans. How many of you have family out there where the mother-in-law, or let's say the grandma, or Nana, as she is in our house, goes a little overboard at Easter or Christmas? No, she doesn't listen to me, and God bless her, and say, honey, please don't spend $500-600 on the kids for Christmas. Well, I might as well be talking to the wall, okay, if you're spoiling. So I finally convinced her. I opened a 529 plan. What that is a tax-free account. Every dollar that goes in grows tax-free towards college, and it can go towards tuition, can go towards books, can go towards food. All you have to do is show that your kid is enrolled in college when you start taking it out. Anybody can contribute. Your next-door neighbor could put in this fund. I gave that example about my mother-in-law because now instead of $500 in gifts at Christmas, she does $250 made out to the 529 plan for my kids' college. And believe me, my kids are going to know that Nana and help them
in a big way.
Pay for college. And it's tax-free, and you could do $50 a month coming directly out of your checking account. It will grow. It grows tax-free.
We ask all of our grandparents, quite frankly, to do that. We don't need birthday presents. We don't need Christmas presents. Yeah. And they wanted to give them something, you know.
If you're going to do $50, then do $25 and put the other $25 in the 529 plan.
Exactly.
And there's another.
And then share with the children. Well, we did. We shared with the kids the 529, and we showed them the number. How it was growing.
And I like your incentive. Hey, if you get out in 4 years, you get the extra. So it's up to you if you want to go to summer school or not.
Exactly.
But also, you can change it. Let's say you have the child and the family that, oh, gosh, I don't know if I want to really give him $10,000 towards tuition. He might just use it to party. You could change beneficiaries at any time. You can even change it to yourself. Let's say both of your kids are whiz kids and they get into Harvard. They went to Waxahachie Global and they got their degree already. You could change it to where now your wife can go to, no offense, honey, go to cooking school or something like that. And last but not least, last tip, if you're looking for a place for your child, I know a lot of people that'll go buy a rent home. for their child while they're at the school because they figured I'm going to pay myself rent, buy a mortgage. Put your child's name on that mortgage, because when they graduate in 4 years, you're making the payment just like you would if they were in a dorm. But in 4 years, because their name was on that mortgage, they've already established a fantastic credit score at 22 years old coming out of college. That's awesome. So those are 3 little ideas and quips. Call the radio station or info at KBEC. I can give these to you in more detail, listeners, if you're interested. But I wanted to get those out there because it's graduate time, so
I
wanted to get this on people's minds.
Next week, a lot of those people walk across different aisles in different places, and you've got to have a plan, parents. If you're out there and you don't have a plan, or you're scared, or you don't know some of these things that we're throwing out to you, we'll be more than happy to answer your questions at 972-937. 972-923-1390 or the Metro line 972-938-1390. Please give us a call, and we want to make sure that we can answer all of these questions for you. Renee, I'm sorry.
I was going to dovetail on that. I think it's the listeners don't make an excuse and not call in. That's some great information. I mean, you can just say, I can't do that. I can't make the call right now. Do it. I mean, that's some great information for your kids going to college, all that information.
I think back on those decisions and how they influenced your life. And in our family, college was never a question. It was, we raised both of our children with the expectation that you will do something beyond high school. And we challenged them. We told them, there's 4-year schools, there's vocational schools, there's technology, there's any number of different ways to continue to improve and get your...
We got one of the best firefighting
for their education.
Right here in our backyard.
Exactly. It's just a matter of what you're going to do. And then, accordingly, when do you plan for it? As a parent, obviously the sooner the better, and the sooner from a financial standpoint if you start when they're 4 or 5 years old. But there's still things you can do even as late as 24 hours before they go to enroll. And I found this out the hard way. There's tuition assistance. There's these wonderful things called loans, packaged in any number of different ways. And then there's nothing wrong to walk into the business department of any college or any university and bare your soul.
Sure.
And when I say bare your soul, this is what I've got, guys. Exactly. This is how much money I've got set aside. What can we do? You know what? There's work programs on campuses. There are benefactors who would love to give money to students who they can then come back and say, hey, I know this child in some way, shape, or form, and this money is going for a very specific use.
It's been proven that kids that have skin in the game, where it's coming out of their own pocket, do better in classes. If mom and dad aren't paying for everything, if they are paying for everything, chances are they may get some D's and C's that freshman year as they find themselves. But you have skin in the game, 9 times out of 10, the child does better in school.
I agree.
Great, guys. We'll be back here in 2 minutes. Give us a call at 972-938-1390 or 972-937-1390. We are talking today about college education and how you plan for that. We'll be back in a minute.
Classic Texas.
I got to tell you, it's kind of appropriate on a country western station to hear AC/DC Back in Black and talking about college, because I think that song single-handedly got me through college in more ways than not.
Your bottom line is back in the black instead of red because your son graduated.
Hey, well, let's hope we get back in the black after Will gets graduated. The other thing you don't realize when it comes to college cost is all the incidentals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm bringing him home, okay? I'm spending $350 on the U-Haul. I'm spending $200 in gas. We're there for 2 nights. It's my brother, my sister, my mom, my mother-in-law, my daughter, my wife, myself. And you go, okay, that's, what, a $200 weekend? Ha! I broke $12,000 in about a heartbeat.
Yeah,
when you got to fly part of them in from Indiana. You got to get hotel rooms for him. You got to get meals, the whole bit. I'm just sitting there going, boom, 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 boom.
Is your daughter married yet?
My daughter's engaged, and she's scheduled to get married in 2 years. She's dating a doctor.
Are you saving up now?
We have started that process as well, and I'm telling that's another $20,000.
2 years, yeah, oh yeah.
Well, and we're not even sure exactly when that date's going to be, but May of 2014, possibly. She's got 1 year left in her residency to become a doctor of audiology.
Wow, nice.
And in her boyfriend's case, he's in his 3rd year of med school and just now sitting for his boards. So he has to sit through each one of those to even determine as to whether he's going to be an orthopedic surgeon or whether he wants to be a...
So he knows all about college costs and loans.
Well, today to graduate out of med school, most of these kids are graduating with upwards of $250,000 to $400,000 in debt.
My best friend's 38 years old, been practicing for 8 years, and still has $180,000 in student loan debt.
Yeah, and I mean it's a heavy duty deal. I'm sorry, Renee.
Oh no, I was saying I'm glad they went to school anyway and didn't use the excuse of it's going to cost a lot of money because they have to put. We were talking about having skin in the game, and they know it's going to take some time to pay it back and do well in their careers.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit more about excuses and how you overcome those and where you go with them.
Well, if I can leave with the listeners, this information is that by changing our beliefs, we can change who we are. So the whole idea is that these beliefs or these excuses can be ingrained, but the bottom line is that every one of us has an opportunity to make that change, and that no matter how big it is. Now, I was kind of laughing with my wife about that because I said, I heard some people say, well, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to make any changes for you, or I'm not going to have all these excuses. Like my wife will get mad at me, and I was like, well, that's just the way I am. And she would say, well, wait a minute, you need to not quit. You need to quit doing such and such. I'm like, well, what for? Because it bothers me. And so, going back to just making excuses, I started resonating with her about her giving me feedback, and I was like, okay, I can make that change. I can pack for a trip. I used to wait till the last minute to pack for a trip, and I'd forget my underwear or something like that. I'm serious. But
You're not supposed to wait for the
last minute? But my excuse was I wanted to wait until the day I was leaving. And
now, wait a minute. We did one on procrastination, okay?
Well, that's procrastination.
Yeah.
Excuses because I would say that's the way I am.
I've done it, yeah.
I've always packed at the last minute. And now, I won't say she's taught me, but she's made me realize that I pack my stuff way ahead before I make these trips because I don't want to forget anything. So my excuse of that's just the way I've always done it.
Did my wife call you and tell you to bring this up?
Well, no. We're going
on a trip next week. There was something fishy about that. I'm sorry, Renee.
When I had to go to a store and buy some more, briefs, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to start. I want to change my pattern and start packing sooner. I know that's just a small part of that, but one of the things my wife says is when you're packing late at night at 10 o'clock at night, it's keeping me up.
Sure.
And so she was getting mad at me because I was keeping her up from 10, 10:30 or 11 o'clock packing my stuff. This has been years ago, but now I'm one of those perfect packers. I just get all my stuff packed at least 4 or 5 days ahead of time, seriously. But, I can't use that excuse if that's just the way I am. So I'm just kind of using that out there for the listeners of just saying, yeah, you can change those patterns.
When I was traveling for a living, I had a dedicated Dob kit that I knew exactly what was in it every time. I had dedicated drawers that had 4 days worth of underwear because normally my trips were Monday through Thursday, back on Friday. I had a drawer that was dedicated with 4 pairs of socks, and all I had to do was go to those drawers, pull it out, throw it into my suitcase. I could be packed and ready and know I had everything in the suitcase in 7 minutes.
This part of the show I really, really don't like. I feel like I'm somebody.
So no excuses.
Both of you guys.
No excuses.
Mine's Friday night before a Saturday trip at midnight, throwing everything in there, not folded, and my wife just looking at me like, really? I'm like, well, I figure if I don't have it, I'll find it somewhere. So I'm right there with Renee.
Okay, Renee, you and I are going under the bus here.
Yep.
Okay.
I think so.
Mike has given us this challenge, and we have 6 minutes left here on the show.
Well, I'll be quick.
Give us the quiz and let us know what we're supposed to do.
And I have an example of this. So if you have a spouse or if you have a loved one that goes, oh, why do we need to talk about college planning? Why do we need to do this? I have this quiz, and I can make it available either on KBEC's website, or I can be more than happy to email it to you. Call in at 972-938 1390.
Or 972-923-1390. Or we can get it to you at info@kvec.com if you drop us your email. That's all you need to do. Drop us your email at info@kvec.com, and Mike will get this to you. Okay, let's take the quiz.
Last week I picked on the ladies,
Yep.
on their quiz. So I got 5 questions for you. Question number 1, and callers play at home if you want to. Reason for attendance. In recent years, college... It's my Alex Trebek voice.
Is this true or false?
Yeah, no, this is an A, B, C, or D question. I got some true or false.
Okay.
In recent years, college freshmen rank increasingly their future earning power as a leading motivation for attending college. In the 70s, hint, hint, Jim, the leading reason was A, meeting mates, B, joining a protest and demonstrations, C, participating in the party scene, or D, learning about topics of interest.
Oh, no question, C. Party.
As a matter of fact, that was the 70s. Learning at college was the number one reason that maybe they were lying because their parents were watching. I don't know. But definitely, I thought that was funny that in the 70s it was learning, and now it's future earning power is the number one reason.
Having gone to an all-male prep school, it was, I want to meet women, and I want to learn how to party.
Again, this was in the 70s before they had the privacy laws for, the students that you could look at. Question number 2, number of college applications. In 1967, this quiz is called College, Then and Now, a quiz for parents. In 1967, less than 20% of college students reported having applied to 4 or more colleges. Today, the percentage is applied to 4 or more schools is A, 12%, B, 30%, C, 50%, or D, 75%. The amount of high school students applying to 4 or more colleges is 15, 30, 50, or 75%.
So 75, if I'm answering this right, or coming up, 75% of the students would have applied to 4 or more colleges.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
C is 50,
Okay.
B is 30, and A, I'll just say is 15.
So they're applying to more schools or less schools? I'm going to guess they're applying to more, but I don't. What was
it? Was 20% in 1967.
Let's go 50.
You're saying 50%? All right, I'll buy 50.
Bing, bing, bing. You both got it right.
Wow.
More than last week. 50%,
But still, that's incredible.
It's actually 56%. Some students, up to 35%, are applying to 12 or more colleges.
Wow.
They've got to have writer's cramp.
No, but you know what's interesting about that, too, and we did this with our kids. So many times people don't narrow the search in terms of, does your kid want to be a big fish in a big pond, a little fish in a little pond? Do they want to go to a big city, little city? What do they want out of college? And if you've got that narrowed down, then you've got a better focus. But man, 12 schools, that's a lot. And especially at $150 a pop. I mean, these applications aren't cheap. But, all right, go ahead.
All right.
Next question.
Going to another one. Here we go. This is a true or false question for the listeners at home. That's my
Alex Trebek.
Yeah.
Alex Trebek.
Rate of increase in college costs.
We were hoping you were going to look like Vanna White.
Yeah, wow. That's another show. The inflationary increase seen in college costs, U.S. college costs, over the last 30 years is exceeded by only health care costs in the same period. Is that true or false? Basically,
True.
Is tuition higher now than health care cost inflation-wise? Which one's gone up more?
Health costs have gone up more.
Okay. True or false? College has gone up more than health care costs over the last 30 years, inflation percentage-wise.
I would say college has gone up more
than health care.
Yeah, I'll say true.
I'll say true.
The college has gone up more.
Okay, true. The cost of college education has increased at a higher rate than any other cost, including health care. And since 1980, the average cost of a 4-year public college, since 1980, 32 years, 466% increase in the cost of tuition.
I saw that on TV.
Wow.
I heard that on TV.
So if you don't think
college.
saving for your children now is worth it,
So
then
that $50 a week that you're talking about?
well,
Now it's 75.
no excuses, but we'll get it there. It's also working. Last but not least.
Last question.
Here
we go.
In 1980, 68% Americans possessed a high school diploma, and 17 had a college degree. I thought that was kind of low. 1980, 68 high school, 17 college. Today, 77 own a diploma, high school, 85 own a high school diploma, 92 own a high school diploma, or D, 95 own a high school diploma.
C.
I'll go ahead and tell you, C.
92.
92%, but 34% only own a college diploma as of today.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
shocking, 1 and 3. So.
Wow.
Fantastic. Hey, thank you for tuning in today and listening to us. Life and Money Matters with Renee Guerra and Mike Hill. We enjoyed the topic of college education. We've got Waxahachie Indian baseball coming up here in a brief period of time. Go Indians. Hopefully they will be able to bring home a district, or I'm not even sure, a 4th-round championship. Thank you, guys.
You've been listening to Life and Money Matters with the Success Guys on 1390 KBEC. Mike Hill is a registered representative of and securities offered through Berthel Fisher and Company Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Hill & Associates Wealth Management Advisors is independent of BFCFS. The interpretations and organizations of these ideas are the confidential thoughts of Mike Hill and do not represent the opinions of Berthel Fisher and Company Financial Services.